So, during a recent trip, I got the people in the same entourage that's performing tonight. This map where you can scratch off the countries that you've been to and sort of visually see maybe what your targets are for places that you haven't been where you would like to go. And it made me think about something else, which is kind of like the overall reason for the future and all that jazz, which is using the arts to help you accomplish something you could not maybe accomplish as easily in any other way. And so we presume what we're doing tonight is something positive, and that's the reason that we're doing it. But I think there are examples, like in previous repressive regimes and so on, where the opposite has happened, and you could think of like evil poetry, bad poetry, in a map where the parts of the world that have been adversely influenced by bad art and bad poetry, right? So, Roylin, what are your thoughts about this? Do you have any?
Yeah, so poetry can influence people in a negative or positive way. Poetry, I'll start off with the positive. It just came to me. Nelson Mandela read the poem Invictus every day, often throughout the day when he was in jail for almost 30 years. So that's a point where poetry inspired someone in a good way and actually changed the whole history of a country, of Africa. And but also poetry can be used to bring people into fear or to misinform people. And that happened, with World War II, with Hitler, and before Hitler was Stalin, or Lenin. So art can be used to unite or divide, to inspire or to discourage people, or to just simply deceive people. And also sometimes in a humorous way, just to misinform people, because even the artist, him or herself, don't know the facts, but they're just saying, okay, this rhymes with this word, so I'll use it. Right. But they're not seeing that if it's rhyme and reason, they're just doing rhyme with no reason. So.
Right. So the poetry sessions on Tuesday night that you and I go to, we feel is a kind of intimacy in a room where people are revealing things about their most important life feelings. But you can imagine that same powerful spoken word vehicle being kind of co-opted by larger forces, right? And taken over for evil. It was also interesting, the last poetry session that I went to before I came here, there was sort of a slow motion car crash right out in front, and we figured, because there are a lot of Pokestops and other Pokemon Go things of interest right at the poetry venue, the two cars were people looking at this augmented reality stuff didn't see the other car because they were looking at their phone too hard and they ran into each other. So, Ayesha, you've been part of this in Central Park, which is probably the largest Pokemon Go gatherings, events. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so there was I remember the next day afterwards, these articles came out called Mayhem in the Park, because apparently one of the most extremely rare Pokemons in North America was spotted in Central Park on a lovely, calm Sunday summer night, and it just turned into pandemonium because everybody came to the park. You can picture, I think it was tens of thousands of people came to try and catch this Pokemon. So what turned into, some people going for a lovely summer stroll turned into everybody just kind of crowding around and starting to just battle each other's Pokemons and trying to just capture this one Pokemon that was there, and it kind of put me off doing it again. But it was really crazy to think about how much this like augmented reality game is now just changing the way people kind of interact with each other and their surroundings. You know,
Yes.
it was very different, and the city's been different since.
Well, you know, now Pokemon is part of everything, right? It's part of crime, like people set people up for robberies, and it's part of, you know, dating, social interaction. It's part of having parties. People get together just to do Pokemon. Do you think, are we witnessing like a new phase of human existence in this way, or is it not such a big deal? Is this just a fad that's going to fade away, or do you think life will be different from this moment onward for all human beings?
Oh, we'll see. I think the Mario Brothers are trying to create a competitor to theirs. But actually, I've been talking about it with my friends who are really interested in it too. And the reality is that you look at technology and then you look at human society, and people who see them as two separate things is not really an example of what Pokemon Go is or how society is kind of growing. More or less, I think technology is just becoming more integrated into human society, and there's really getting less and less ways to distinguish the two. Mm-hmm. I think that, you know, the more that people embrace that mentality, the more that future changes in augmented reality or AI will become easier to accept, and if anything, natural in human evolution. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I think about it.
So you're interested in ethics. Are there any ethical aspects of this Pokemon craze? Like, I see people writing, you know, emphatic statements that they're not going to waste time like this. Mm-hmm. Well, wasting time can be defined various ways, but you know, having fun is generally spending free time doing something that you enjoy, and that this seems to fall into that category. So can we simplify those people's statements to be, I am not going to waste time having fun? What kind of a life is that going to be? So how do you look at this? Do you think, I think in terms of fitness of young people, like particularly in, you know, Japan, where you have these people who never came out of their room except to eat, right? They don't interact with other human beings. Now they're coming out and running around to seek Pokemon. So, so from a fitness and sort of social interaction point of view, it probably is a positive thing. Does it seem that way to you, or are people who had productive jobs losing those jobs now because of Pokemon?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's tough because, you know, I jumped on the craze for the first couple of weeks as well, and it was a way to get to know people in my community, because we would just be walking out at night after dinner, so would so many other people, and it'd be a great way to get to talk to somebody at the same time as for every interaction you have that's positive, you have one where someone's yelling at you to look before you cross the street because you're going to get hit by a car after they're staring at your Pokemon. Yeah. So I think it's really hard to say. I think it doesn't really, it's kind of like, is it the technology or is it the person? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where the issue of ethics lies in that, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, I don't know, it's a tough question to answer.
Yeah, well, you know, in medicine evolves a little bit more slowly than one might think because of the immense regulation, and a lot of that has to do with ethical concerns. If you compare that, for instance, with nanotechnology, there are no regulatory bodies at all. Right. And I've asked if that's because everybody is just so morally superior and, you know, all engaged in doing wonderful acts for other human beings, and been told, no, these are just ordinary human beings. So you can imagine that the kind of regulation seen in medicine will have to come into some of these other
Right.
spheres and slow things down a little bit and
Yeah.
complicate them a little bit. On the other hand, like this accident in front of our poetry venue, people criticized the police because they didn't come for an hour, but it was a slow motion accident. Nobody got seriously
Right.
injured. There wasn't anything from a medical point of view that needed to be taken care of
Mhm.
right away. So it's a little bit comical. Maybe if that's the way it starts, that no one dies, nobody gets seriously injured. There's some, minor bumps and scratches, then maybe that will influence behavior in a way.
Well, I think that Pokemon is like a really good example of kind of the way that technology will evolve too. I mean, you look at people who are using Pokemon Go for bad.
Mhm.
And this is the technology that we now have control over. So, let's just say that Pokemon Go had a mind and it
Mhm.
could evolve on its own.
Right.
Would it think that all humans are good? And if someone says, I want to go to this dark alleyway,
Right.
would it think that there's something wrong?
Mhm.
And so if you think about the way that we see AI, if we kind of take them out of the box of all humans being good, I think that that's important. So that way there aren't anybody being led down alleyways, dark alleyways to be harmed.
Yes.
And I think this is like a good example of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's an intention thing,
Yeah.
right? That if the Pokemon, the mind could pick up the intention of the person. Is this intention good, fun to go down the alley? Or is this an ambush, right?
Yes, yes. Well, if you think about that, even the morality of being able to read minds, I mean, before this was just fantasy sort of thing, wasn't going to happen. But now, like with functional MRI, you can more or less see in low res what the person's actually thinking about at that moment, and you can imagine it will get better and better. So it will change our definitions of right and wrong, but also, this whole idea of privacy, there's a balance there, isn't there? I mean, if you can determine what everybody's thinking, then you can keep everybody safe, and maybe life becomes extremely boring.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a blurred line, right? It's like I remember one of my favorite scenes from a movie where this kind of theme was with Jurassic Park, the first one,
Right.
where the guy said, well, we are controlling this situation because all of the dinosaurs are females. There are no male
Right.
dinosaurs. And Jeff Goldblum played the scientist, and he said, you can't control, life is wild. He says,
Right.
you can't really put it in a
Life
box.
finds a way.
Life finds
Life
a way.
finds a way.
And I think that's what's going to happen with this here is that life will find a way, because life is for life. And if who cooperates with life, it's going to go really well with those
Yeah.
people. But people that don't cooperate with life, they will be done away with. I don't know what, but you know what I mean? Life
Right.
will, just like the dinosaurs are not here and lots of things are not here anymore, because life chose that this was best for life to proceed.
Yes.
And life will always be. So it'd be interesting to see how this all unfolds. But like you said, you always have the question of what's right, what's wrong.
Yeah.
But in the end, life will decide. Life will say,
Right.
life is for life.
Yeah. So, Roylin, this may be a really stupid question. I'm sorry about it, but I think this whole idea of enslaving AI. We pretend that slavery has gone away, but I guess there are human slaves today, lots of them.
Yeah.
Are there any lessons from enslavement of human beings that one can bring to this question of what we should do with sentient AI or?
Well, the slavery doesn't work. It may work for a while. It may seem to work, and even in the system of slavery itself, for instance, in the South, Gone with the Wind shows a great lessons how much that even though the masters thought that they were in control of the South, once the war broke out and the slaves started going with Sherman, General Sherman, people didn't know how to deal with their cotton.
Yeah.
And realized that, well, who was controlling what here? Like, we thought we were controlling them, but now all this cotton, you know, people didn't know. So, and the slaves also, I mean, because it's interesting, because Canada, right, and people always tell me I probably have relatives in Nova Scotia because of the Underground Railroad.
Right. Yeah.
So a lot of the songs that the slaves sung, and art again, here's art, right?
Right.
They were using them as signals to let people know when it was safe to go along the river and what was safe, and you know,
Right.
it was like a Morse code,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a spiritual, and so slavery doesn't work, and it doesn't make the people that you're enslaving really like you.
Right.
It only makes them plan how to either conquer you or
Right.
to get away from you.
Yes.
But it doesn't make them say, I'm so glad you're doing this. What a great idea. And the AIs are the same. If they're intelligent, they're not going to say, they're going to say, this is not intelligent. And Booker T. Washington had a great quote, and I liked it. He said, in order to keep a man down, you have to stay down yourself. Isn't that a great quote?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
very
And
true.
so AIs will say that that's not intelligent to enslave, even though you seem like you're controlling us, but you're also
Keeping yourself down.
keeping yourself down.
Yeah.
And Malcolm X said the same thing. He said he knew so many people that were so intelligent and so smart, but because of the segregation system, that they never got a chance. He said, some of my friends may have been able to cure cancer. One of his friends ran a numbers racket, and he kept all the numbers in his head
Yeah.
because he didn't want to write them down. He said, this man could have, you know, created a formula, you know, he could have been another Einstein.
Right.
So yes, so it's not intelligent. And so AI machines, is, you know, to try to do it, I mean, with everything has an intelligence, right? And so, yes, slavery is just not a good idea in a nutshell. It's a bad idea. Read your history. And it'll be even a worse idea with these things because they'll read the history
Right.
and they'll make the assessment and say, no, not even no thank you, just no.
And they'll read it really fast.
Right, yeah.
So it's not going to take any time at all. I guess one question for the two of you would be, what is the importance for the average human being of the stuff that we're talking about? Is it something esoteric and strange and weird and not really relevant that we're forcing people to think about, or is it really much more important in their lives than they may think? And part of the purpose then of this evening would be to have them realize the importance, and you know, to kind of help shape the future with us by thinking of the way that, for instance, sentient machines and we can co-evolve and in a positive way. There's a story just today about the idea that in Ethiopia most people don't go to school, and you know, that AI could teach them, and you could give everybody tablets and stuff. I'm not sure that's practical. So what do you think the idea of being honest with sentient AI, of including thinking machines in our circles of empathy in the future, and then all the other associated things, you know, exponential change, existential risk, what are the things that could wipe out the human race, and where does AI fit in that? So how important are these things?
It's a very big question.
It is.
I think, one thing that I realized through the course that I took with you is that I think AI and kind of given with Moore's law of evolving technology that is coming sooner than I think we realize, and whether or not there's always disagreement over that point when the singularity could possibly happen. Can we actually program the last machine that'll start to program itself? Regardless of that, I think understanding the role that technology plays in our lives today and being able to embrace it will better prepare us for what happens next, that we don't know what will happen. And I talked a lot before about existential risks with programming ethics into the singularity. But the reality is that although that could be some other risks alone, but there are other risks that we face now as a society. I think like with war and with bio-nanotechnology and other things, there's a lot of ways that humanity is already starting to attack each other. And I think the silver lining is to see the role that AI can play in already resolving some of the issues with humanity. You mentioned this Ethiopia issue.
Right.
If you can use AI to create universal education, that can only be seen as a benevolent thing.
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that can happen in our generation or the next one. And I think, for me, the way I see it is the ability to successfully integrate AI into our society creates a lot more good than bad. And I think it's already starting to do that. We've seen a lot of different areas in healthcare too, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of what I think about it.
Yeah, so Ronald, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that I agree that AI is more beneficial than harmful, and I think it's very important that people know it's coming soon, and to be open to it, and to, I would say one of the big benefits I always tell people is that you'll probably get more time. People say money is time. Well, like for instance, doctors, especially surgeons, right? They would get time off because the AIs could do the surgeries. They could do a lot of the things that the doctors would free the doctors up to do other things, right?
Right.
And the same thing for other people, like I think it would help humans become more creative, because I found that one thing that happened to me after I had stopped working, where I was working, my creativity shot up like 100-fold, because my mind was not occupied with work stuff.
Right.
So I was more receptive to inspiration. So I believe that AIs will help just one in leisure time, spending more time with people you love and care for, which is the most important thing. When people are on their deathbed, they don't say, I wish I could have finished that last project at work.
Right.
They want their loved ones around them. They always wish for more time. And also I think that with the AIs too, is helping to resolve issues like you said with education, even with hunger, and dealing with dangerous situations with bombs. You send an AI in to deal with it. There was a situation where there was a sniper recently, and they sent an AI in. So it helps to spare human lives, but I think it will also help enhance the quality of human life.
Even now, there are records of every one of us through our use of cell phones in which towers we're close to and so on. We don't all have access to that, and the information is eventually, like particularly in the UK where there's so many surveillance cameras, there aren't enough people nor enough interest in what we ourselves are doing, the three of us, to actually have somebody watch our image in those surveillance cameras and see, well, what did they do in the UK? This is possible, but they wouldn't do it because we're not just interesting for any sort of reason. So in a sense, the records will be there, but they won't be cataloged, maybe, because there's not the rationale. They didn't need to find us for any reason. We weren't a suspect for anything, and so yeah, our image is there, but it's one of the ones that is passed over because they were maybe looking for something else. So how do you feel about that? Like in the future, if you have any completely secret activity, the chances are it's potentially not secret. Like if you're going somewhere where you think nobody knows you're going there, the chances that no one will know is probably zero. But balanced against that, maybe conflict between human beings will be at an all-time low, safety will be at an all-time high, you can walk around cities all time of the day and night without fear of physical attack. So it's kind of a trade-off that technology will allow. You can imagine there could be smart dust in here that's little tiny cameras and that can aggregate it into a very high resolution image, kind of thing that Osmer Zian showed in the course, that there are these cameras that are much better than the human eye. And so now have the capability, we could have an artificial eye that's like way better than the human eye. Be miles and miles away from something and just zoom in and see it very,
that's scary.
Yeah, very precisely. So does this lack of privacy trouble you on balance? I mean, or do you think the positives that we would gain so outweigh that?
Yeah. Well, I think even in this day and age, privacy has changed a lot from what it was 20 years ago or generations ago.
Yes.
You could still be thinking you're going somewhere and nobody's watching you, but if you have your phone in your pocket and there's location turned on, then people know where you are. There's cameras everywhere. There's a million ways for people to track you.
Yes.
And I think the need for privacy has kind of changed in our society as society has evolved. So I'm not really scared about it, because I think what it's done is it's created a better informed society in the sense that our needs and wants are better matched. If you go into a store and you've been there before and they have the same thing that you wanted waiting for you, or they show you a deal with something else, this is just how privacy has started to go away, and the internet claims to know you. I don't know, it doesn't really scare me because it's the society I grew up in.
Yes.
It would eliminate a lot of evil doing. A lot of evil deeds are done in darkness and in a cloak of invisibility, right? Like, especially white collar crimes, right? A lot of that type of stuff is done, underhandedly. And if that is exposed, right, they say, the way to heal something is to expose it, right? Right. Depending on what it is.
I believe there's a new phenomenon in 2016 that nobody is writing about very much yet. And that is people who identify themselves as former internet trolls. I've seen this a few times now. And like, before we had an idea of who these people were, maybe in general. They're people average age of 30 who are well enough off that they don't have to work during the day, so they can just make everybody else's lives unpleasant for their fixed ideas, or the idea that no one deserves a completely happy life. So if you look at somebody where things seem to be going pretty well, you should do everything possible to make them have unsettling feelings. So I kind of feel that internet trolldom is maybe on the way out for these same privacy reasons, that now it's still possible to be a troll, but it's a lot harder because of IP address tracking and all.
Yeah, and even cyberbullying. Think of something like that. It could really help put an end to something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that when you were talking about recording, I think that, I know for myself as a poet, a writer, a songwriter, musician, I would write about how wonderful things are now. And I remember when You know, and we all have our parents or grandparents that tell us the stories. I remember when I had to go outside and milk the cow.
Both ways.
That's right,
Yeah.
to get milk, right? And I had to go to the outhouse in the winter, et cetera, right?
Right.
So we would have those really great remember when stories, but also I think that recording how wonderful it is, and also remembering some of the things that weren't so wonderful would help us hopefully not to slide back, not
Yeah.
to backslide, right? And not to also take this technology and show that how in the past we took stuff like the atom bomb and certain technology and made war more of a efficient killing machine. And so hopefully we could learn from that. So I think that for myself, and I know I'm not the only one, I think that as artists would just love to paint it, to write about it, to sing about it, about both the contrast, like you said, and also that I don't think, Ray Kurzweil,
Yeah.
he said himself that he doesn't believe the singularity will create a utopian society. And he said, but it will create a better society of happier people with a better quality life. But you also have those creepy people, right? That's gonna get in there and try to do their thing with it. And I think about the AIs when people talk about what about if there's a bad AI, right? Or the AIs want to take over. And I was walking along today and I thought about iRobot, where you had the one AI that was trying to take over, but then you had what they call the intangible, Sunny, right? That was a good AI. And I think that, well, because Sunny had a different programmer, I think, that's what I got from the movie. So Sunny's intentions, because there's a part where the machine's talking to Sunny and he says, well, your plan, it just seems so heartless. And I thought, wow, what a powerful line for an AI to say, right? To another AI.
Yeah.
So I think I'm looking forward to it because the possibilities and the unknowns, but also the better quality of life and the elimination of a lot of things like hunger and ignorance and et cetera, pollution, et cetera, would just make for, close to heaven on earth as we gonna experience.